From Journey with VRD, you're listening to the Visions, Missions, and Manifestations podcast, the number one place for spirituality, healing, and transcendence. I'm your host, Vivian Raquel Dayan. Now let's get into it. On today's podcast episode, I'm so excited to announce that not only do we have our first male guest, but we also have the Millennial Rabbi, Daniel Bortz, the founder of Soul Olive Global, here with us today. Daniel, hi. It's so nice to have you here. Thank you for coming on. Please tell us a little bit about Soul Olive and what its mission and vision and purpose is.
Wow. Thank you for having me on. This is such a pleasure. So it's actually Soul X, but the X is shaped like an olive because in English, the X kind of looks like a Hebrew olive. And I use the olive as my logo. So it is confusing, but Soul X stands for soul experience. And I love the intellectual wisdom and beauty within Judaism, but I've always most enjoyed the experience of spirituality and transcending the mind and kind of bridging the mind with the heart and body. And so I try at our events to do that. I try to incorporate meditation and music and sensory experiences to kind of help people connect to our tradition in a way that's more relatable to our generation. That's the bird's eye view. And there's a lot of things that we're doing in New York City and around the world to gather people, young professionals to connect to Judaism in a powerful, relatable way.
One of the things I love is how you focus in on transcendence and really connecting with the different, not only religion as something that's lawful, but also as something that is more ritualistic and more of a connection with God. How does Aleph come into play there? Like the Hebrew letter, for the listener who doesn't really know what Aleph even is, or
the letter Aleph is amazing. It's very powerful. According to the mystics, the Kabbalists, the letter Aleph is really, every letter is a letter Aleph because Aleph is one, it's the first letter, and every letter after that is just a lot of olives being expressed in that letter. So there's an idea that like the beginning of sound of a child is the it's the first sound. The Aleph, if you break it up in the logo, is a Yud, which is a Hebrew letter, which is the number 10. It's the 10th letter. A Yud on the bottom, which is also 10, that's 20. And a Vav in the middle, which is the 6th letter. So that's 26. And God's 4-letter ineffable name equals 26 as well. So within the Aleph is a lot of deep things. I think Natalie Portman named her kid Aleph. Aleph means, if you think about it in English, we believe that all languages might be connected to Hebrew on some level. So even the idea of like elevates, or even the animal, the biggest animal is an elephant. We believe that a lot of these like things in English, Hebrew, it's a lot of significance to the number 1,000 is Aleph. To teach is also connected to Aleph. I actually lead meditations with the Aleph based on this Kabbalist from the 1200s, Avraham Abulafia, and he believed that you could kind of close your eyes and enunciate the sounds of Hebrew letters and kind of move your head in the directions of the sounds, which is a whole long topic, but you could actually reach the highest, deepest experiences within yourself through something as simple as just sounding out a letter. You'd think it would be like the deepest books of like intellectual understanding. No, the simple speech, because the Torah says God said, let there be light or let there be water. Divine speech is what created reality. And we too, like abracadabra in Hebrew, abara kedabera, I create with my speech. Magic is us using our speech to create new realities.
So it sounds like a lot of your approach comes from spirituality and really understanding religion on a deeper level than just the surface. And so I wonder how you got here to where you are today and how you came up with Soul X.
Yeah, so I guess I would take it back, as many stages of one's journey. But in 2018, now granted, I'd already I'm jumping ahead. I'd already, connected more spiritually. I learned around the world in Jerusalem. But the idea of like doing this as like events to offer the community, I was praying in my backyard in San Diego, California, and it was a Friday night. We do, Shabbat, and I was praying on my own. Now you might ask, why would a rabbi be out of synagogue and praying on his own in his garden? And that's because I don't connect as much in synagogue. I connect much more in nature and with my own music and my own experiences. And I kind of just, for one of these 2018, one of these times, it just like hit me like lightning. You have these moments of clarity. I was like, if I'm a rabbi and I know the meaning behind every word and every aspect of Jewish experience, and I still am not really connecting the traditional way, how much more so my friends and people, my generation that doesn't know things of the words and they're looking at the page blankly, for sure they need something different. They need some, not to take away what Judaism is, but to bring it and package it in an experience that they can connect with. And like a week or two later, I did a sound bath in my backyard to usher in the peace of Shabbat from the weekday. And we did the blessing on the wine, we did the ritual, but it was kind of like an example of that journey I began then to connect to Judaism in a way that is more relatable. Yeah.
And so when you talk about connecting with God through nature, do you want to talk a little bit about how nature can awaken something within us, or like kind of like bring out the plug to connect into the outlet being God, which could be found in nature?
I love that. If you want to get to know a painter, like you look at his painting, you kind of take your time. This is the way God decided to express the divine, decided to show us the outer blueprint. We believe in Kabbalah that this world is rooted higher and higher infinitely. So what we're looking at is the final kind of outer layer expression. That is the DNA blueprint of like higher and higher levels. And we human beings are also a blueprint of God, meaning when you look deep within yourself, you start to understand the divine as well. Like a mother's love for her newborn baby is a tiny glimpse into God's love for you on an infinite level. So these are all hints to connect back up. And I think the world around us, another little cool aspect is that it says that Adam Olam Katan, a person's the miniature world. So not only is it a blueprint of the higher, but a human and the world, that the nature, the universe is also a blueprint of each other. So just one example, just to show, would be like, just as a human being has a heartbeat in and out, has breath in and out, you look outside of ourselves into the world and we see the ocean waves. You can sit on the beach and just watch the waves move in, but thank God they pull back out. Otherwise they would inundate us. There's this like ebb and flow. And that ebb and flow can be found everywhere. If you look at these like principles, you can look at the world around you, look within yourself and notice that this is not random. There's such a like amazing kind of rhythm and order to the way the planets orbit each other, not too close, not too far. Everything is this dance, this ebb and flow that you can find on every level. We could take that further down, but that's just like one example of like, and if I just had to narrow it down to one thing, it would be like wonderment, just always to be in like wonder of nature and of the one who formed that nature.
So many different directions we could go here, but recently on a couple podcast episodes ago, we said how wonder is always bringing you into the fifth dimension, not capping anything, but allowing any possibility to come through. And to get back to the whole nature aspect, I've learned that trees are living in the 12th dimension. And so they have so much knowledge for us, so much information, and also nurturing and healing energy to give us when we're there. So it makes sense to me why praying outside would connect you to even higher dimensions, God, when you're surrounded by the trees.
There's so much. I mean, even the spelling of the letter eight, tree, is shaped like a tree in Hebrew, and the tree of life, obviously Kabbalah is known as the tree of life, Adam and Eve with the tree that's not by chance. But what we just said a moment ago ties in beautifully. If you look at how a tree comes into being, it's a seed that is planted in the ground, and that ground, that earth and Mother Nature, right? Mother Earth, it takes it and slowly builds it out into this tree that then has branches that then create fruit, and you can take a seed from that fruit and ad infinitum, forever you could keep creating. And a human being is literally the exact same. There's the seed, there's the potential of a human, there's the embryo and the womb and the mother that takes that potential and builds the branches and builds out the limbs of this being. And once born, that being can then grow and can also plant and continue this. And the goal, right, of a tree and a human is not just to be there, it's to be firmly rooted in what you believe in, but it's also to provide shade and to provide fruit and to provide shelter and to give and to oxygen. And like there's a lot of lessons from And the Torah actually says that Adam ate Sada, that a person is a tree of the field. There's this like idea that we can learn a lot from the, like you said, almost more than most things in the world.
So I have to ask. So if we think of a person as a tree, there's this idea that, a tree is only going to grow so big and so healthy depending on the environment that it's in, the soil that it's planted in. And I feel like it's almost a double-edged sword because if we think of a person and if we nurture the person, the child, if we give it the environment that it needs to grow, it could grow beautifully, but it could also still be shakeable. Just like a person who maybe grew in a not so healthy environment might have such a strong self-worth and sense of self because they've done all the work that's needed in order to have it. And so I wonder your take on a tree that is planted in perhaps not the best soil. How can it still grow and flourish and have the confidence to provide shade?
It's a great question. And I do think that like your family and like what you learn as a child, or if you're given love, like it's so essential, so foundational, so not easy. And it is a lot easier to get. But I think everyone is given the tools. There's an idea that every person is given the tools necessary to fight their battle of whatever level that battle is. And you do know people that grow up in the most amazing surroundings and they easily fall into every temptation and fall off the tracks. And you have those that had the most horrific upbringing, but they have a certain inner strength they've been gifted that helps them, get through. And I guess the only practical thing I can offer on this is that I know for myself, no matter how great my soil is, if I'm not consistently rooting and feeding that soil and watering it, if I'm not learning, if I'm not having the right friends around me, if I'm not working on myself and I'm just like kind of forgetting what I'm here to do, I don't care how strong my roots are, and it'll help for sure, like my soil and everything, a person will fall. And I think just kind of like trying as consistently as you can to feed your soul. There's a saying that's the Rebbe used to say that a man will only be happy if he nourishes his soul as much as he does his body. And the body we're nourishing all the time. We're snacking. We're like sleeping in. We're like constantly. We could even do a better job of it. But the soul, we're like, yeah, I'll listen to Vivian's podcast once a week or once every day. We need to be more consistent with our spiritual nourishment and to talk to those friends and talk to the wise people we know and take time for ourselves to journal and to do all the things that I'm sure you teach your listeners to do. That's watering our soil and not waiting for someone else to like hopefully rescue us and water our soil,
Which is why I think it's so important that you created Soul X in Manhattan, where so many people are on this journey of self-discovery and their connection with religion and God and source and all of that. And it really allows anybody, whatever level they're on, to really come and connect and ask questions and better understand. I have to ask, do you believe in astrology?
It's funny. About a year or two ago, I was at a rabbi that I'm close with house. He has 8 daughters, no sons. And one of his daughters, we chatted for like maybe 2 minutes, just met her, and she says, "You're a Pisces." And I was like, "How did you know that? That's impressive." And I think like when I heard that, of course, I've learned a little bit about it, and to be honest, I'm not much of an expert in it. But I remember that being like a wake-up call for me. I'm like, this is real. And I guess I would say I'm a novice, but I try to learn here and there about it. And I do think not only your astrology, but also like the Talmud says, the day of the week you're born, the month you're born in, the name you get, that hour of the day you're born. Like there's so many aspects, your parents, so many aspects that affect your personality.
It kind of connects to what you were saying before, how you said everybody's given the tools they need to overcome their battles. And when you talk about someone's name and their parents and the hour they were born that was given to them, everything is so intentional. Everything is so like perfect for each person's journey. And so even though somebody could hate their parents or really have a hard time overcoming any situation in life, I always say that each one of these aspects are actually your greatest gift getting you to your next level. And so it's funny because I could speak from my own experience having a mindset for a very long time of just struggle, struggle, struggle. But then once you make that mind shift of like, oh, wait, these are actually my greatest gifts that will help me get to my next ascension, you actually reach that next ascension. It's like the craziest awakening within the awakening. And so I have to
Yeah.
ask you, what's a shift that you've experienced or that you've consciously made in order to stay at the higher frequency that you're currently at?
For me, I've had one practice that's been like my bedrock for my spirituality. When I was like, this is a long time ago, when I was like probably 16 or something, there was a Zohar is like this old Kabbalistic book. And this rabbi had like selections of the Zohar in English, small book, little tiny piece of it. And in it, he talked about how the mystics of the ancient days would wake up at midnight. So they would sleep probably when it got dark outside. There was no Netflix or anything back then. They'd go to sleep and they would wake up like 5, 6 hours later, like 6 p.m. to midnight, and they would stay up the whole night. First, they would do something called tikkun chatzot, which is they would mourn the state of the world. So like the world and the universe, there's so much pain. We're not in a rectified, redeemed state. They would mourn, they would pray psalms, and then they would learn Torah the whole night till dawn, and then they would pray the dawn. And I'm like, wow. And they said, like, this is an auspicious time. Like daytime is God's kindness. Nighttime is God's severity. Midnight till dawn is like God's compassion. It's like a special time of the night. And I'm always a late night person. So I didn't have to wake up at midnight. I was up at midnight anyways. And I've had a practice for most of my life every night before I go to bed around that time to sit and kind of meditate / speak to God / thank God for my day, notice the good things that happened to me, mourn the pain in the world and what I'd wish good upon everybody, and just kind of feel. I listen to music, I have my thing, and I kind of just feel into not getting all stuck on prayers or on learning, just kind of feel into my natural innate love and connection to my divine source. And for me, all my downloads happen then, all my like clarity of mission. Like it's a weird time because you're about to pass out, but like for me, everyone's quiet because the city is quiet. It's like a quiet time, both outwardly and inwardly. And I just love it. It's like even when I don't feel like doing it, like that's my bedrock. That's like kept me a lot. Yeah, somebody will go on my Instagram and it'll be like what they'll see some very deep thing at like 1 a.m. because that just happened from that. They probably don't know why, but so that's one thing I would offer is like kept me connected strongly.
I tried the 5 a.m. club. I don't know if you've heard of it, the 5 a.m. club for like
And
a
the
pretty
audiobook.
long time.
The audio.
Yes, yes, yes. And it really was such a holy time. I would go for a walk with my dog. I'd wake up at 5 a.m., go for a walk. And there was very minimal cars in New York City, driving around. And there was a smell. I'm a very sensory person. And there was a smell in the air that felt like home. A very,
Mm,
a very peculiar smell. And I always felt that it was such a holy time to meditate because not so many people in the area were up connecting with God. It was like my special meeting with God to ask and request and invite in any opportunities and manifestations that I was calling in. And so I think it has the same idea of what you were doing around 12 o'clock in the morning. And
yeah.
connecting and meditating and channeling during that time. What do you think if you had a superpower or a sixth sense? What do you think yours would be?
Um, I, Sixth sense. I would say maybe touching on what I said a moment ago with nature. I think my sense of, I don't know if this counts as a sixth sense, but my kind of trait would be like awe and wonder. Like for me, no, I'm not so jaded. Like when I'll get excited about like a leaf on the ground that has like droplets of water, and I'll look at it and like the veins of the leaf, and it's just like amazing. I'm like, wow, like this is incredible. For me, it's the simple things that I find sometimes we can easily move on from because we've seen it before, right? That repetition. I can still get excited and wondered and just about any little things in life. And just in general, like just excited about what can happen. And I think I give that over to people as well, this kind of like the zest and excitement for what can happen, the magic that can be, and not to get kind of like jaded by life. So I don't know if that counts, but maybe that's one.
It does count. It's definitely a gift. And here is why I see it as a gift. If you think of a candle, the more you burn it, it doesn't look tall anymore because it melts down.
Hmm.
And although it's still giving off the light, you still could see it's still burning. It's not as, it doesn't look from the outside as it once did.
Mm.
And so to have the same excitement, knowing like if we think about relationships, right? You might have been in one before, you know, kind of what to expect, to still have that excitement. I think the same excitement as the first time is still, it's a gift.
I have to share this. I share it often, but you probably like thought of this in different ways, but for me, this is like a game-changing idea. Rabbi Kiva Tatz talks about it, but it's rooted in sources. The idea of first light, second light. First light is a gift God gives us of inspiration for something. It could be a new idea, a new relationship, that romance, that excitement that we all get at the beginning of something. Then it goes away and a person has a choice. Do I want to follow this and slowly work at it over time to build something real? Or do I want to just let it go? Some people let it go. Some people take that and they're like, I'm going to go for it. And as they go for it, it becomes something that loses that flair, that excitement, which lasts for some people for a few months, a year, 2 years. My mom used to tell couples about to get married. She would tell them about this because they're like, what do you mean it goes away? She's like, it goes away, but it'll come back in a different way. When you look at an elderly couple sitting on a bench together, there's no like fireworks, but it's real. They built something real. Whereas the couple on the romance in Venice, it's also real, but it's not really real. You haven't yet built anything real. It's God giving you a glimpse of what can be if you put in the work, not a sexy way, very over time, very like little details of taking out the trash and like, but that's all going to build that real thing. And I think I can see it in the work I do. I'm now almost 14 years into like community outreach work. And only now am I really feeling the beauty of the full fruition of like, I didn't even know where I was headed, that it gets to. And it's the little, and I had a glimpse of it. We can get more into that concept, but I had a glimpse of what is now then. Did I think it would take this long or did I like, but the glimpse is a gift. And then you have to, you know, go through all the struggle to like make it your own. And that's the gift of life. Like, make it your own. It's not a gift anymore.
For sure. It's not the destination, it's the journey, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
where is Soul X going? What is the big vision and the mission?
Wow. So kind of based on what I just said, like I couldn't tell you 100% what the future will look like, but I'm kind of following my gut and the voice that's from event to event, from quarter to quarter, like from year to year, kind of like what can I do now to further impact, and not just further impact like quantitatively, but also like qualitatively, you know, how can we deepen the experience? And my big thing this year has been, how do you move from event maker to community and real like community and real, because New York's a very transient place. People come and go. People come from event to event, then they find like a partner or something and you don't see them for 6 months. Like, how do you make it? And I've always dealt with this, even when I worked with teenagers and youth, and that, thank God, has been happening. We just launched like a membership model where people are like having to become member, different things that are making it feel more like a community, and I've really been enjoying.
Hey there, it's Vivian, and I'm briefly interrupting this episode because I'm so excited to share that if this episode is lighting you up, then I know that us working together in my new one-on-one packages is going to be the thing that you forever utilize as the resource, power tool, and hands-on experience for your manifestation practice. I'm so excited that I've opened this up and I have like 3 spots right now, and I'm going to link how to sign up and apply in the show notes. You can also send me a DM on Instagram at JourneyWithVRD because I want to make sure that this is a hell yes fit for you. But the type of people I typically work with are people who are ready to manifest more abundance, love, success, purpose, fulfillment, and overall joy into their lives. Right now, I have space for 3 people in my 3-month packages, and I also have a really fun way for us to work together in person to reach out if this is something that you're interested in. Okay, now back to the episode. Can you talk about the importance of community?
Yeah, you know, I always thought, I went on my own journey for so long. Like I went 1 year of college and then I went to Jerusalem and I went from country to country every year, new people, knew all about myself, my own personal journey, my own spiritual path. Like if anything's going to hold me back from what I can accomplish, I don't need to waste my time on relationships. And then you get to a place where you realize how important it is. And not that you need a million friends, you only need a few good ones, but even in my event making, I thought it was about providing people with the opportunity to connect to their own soul. And I'm starting to realize like ultimately what we want is connection to others. Of course, we want our own personal fulfillment, but we need community. We need people to like bounce off our all the craziness that's in our like inner world. And you know, at the end of the day, it's your journey. We're kind of alone in this world and the next on some level, but on the other hand, it is all us. Like mystically, we're all parts of one body, so to speak. Like some people are hand people, they're action oriented. Some people are brain people, some people are heart people, but you need the whole body to work together. If the world was just one, it wouldn't work. And I think everyone has their role, and they can help you see your points of where you can grow and become the best you as well. And I'm still learning about the importance of community, but I know deep down it's vital, friendships and community.
I think there's nothing like finding a community where you feel validated, you feel seen, you feel a sense of belonging, especially in such a big city where it seems from the outside looking in that everybody already has a community or a group of friends. So I really think it's great what you're doing and what you're putting out there. So
Thank you.
curious to also learn a little bit about what your viewpoint is of God.
Somebody messaged me today about trying to learn about prayer. And one thing I said back, I said, Judaism is not a religion, it's a relationship. And I think God is this infinite, loving force that is beyond description. On one hand, everything that we see, every relationship, as we mentioned before, from a mother to a child, from a husband to a wife, from a best friend to a best friend, from a parent to a child, all these different things one human can experience. I believe God is all of them, which is hard for our minds to wrap around. We think of God, some people that picture something. They picture an old man in the sky. Maybe they picture light, or they picture a certain feeling. But to me, God is all of them and none of them. And the best description in Hebrew of God's four-letter name is Haya, Hove, Vayeh, was, is, and will be. So so one word would be ever present. So it's kind of this like every moment is an expression of God, of the ineffable. And I've tasted moments, thank God, I've been gifted, I guess, the ability to feel very strongly like the presence. And I've had some moments, especially early in my journey, we talked about those little glimpses that you're given. I've had some incredible experiences of tasting what I imagine the next world is that all the time, but like little glimpse of like that brings you to your knees, that like the beauty of it is not described in human terms. That there's a book I have where it's an old Hasidic book. It says, if you lived as the king or queen of all the world for thousands of years, imbibing every pleasure humanly imaginable, it wouldn't equate to one moment in the next world.
Wow.
Qualitatively. Yeah. So it's not like a million to one. It's like, you know, it's another dimension of reality. So to me, God is my whole focus, is my entire reality on some level in every way. Not that I'm thinking all the time, but it's where I'm trying to get to. It's truth. It's like a higher consciousness.
So I'm a dimension junkie. And we spoke about the next world a little. And so I'd love to hear what your viewpoint on the next world is.
I love that. So to describe spirituality is difficult because we only know space and time. That's our dimensions. I know you're into the 4 dimensions, the 5th dimension. Funny, at the beginning of COVID, I went down a lot of rabbit holes because I had more time on my hands. And I went into string theory that talks about, I think, around 12 dimensions. You can tell me more. To me, the 5th dimension or the 6th dimension, you know, that's where you start to talk about spirituality. That's what I mean. How could God know what you're going to do and you still have free choice? Because there's dimensions of reality that's beyond time. Time is one level. So that's just dimensions in my head. But what I would say about the world to come, the next world, always look to the Hebrew because it's a divine language, I feel like. So the word for heaven in Hebrew is, do you know?
Heaven, Shamayim?
Shamayim.
Okay.
Nice. So Shamayim, if you break up the word heaven, Shamayim, every plural is the im at the end. The yud mem, the im means many of something. The first 2 letters is sham. Sham means over there. Over there just means many over there's. Okay, what does that mean? What does over there mean? Over there is where I'm trying to get to. I'm here, and over there is where I'm trying to get to. Heaven is all of the destination points experienced at once. What does it mean, destination point? This lifetime is like hustling. We never feel like we get there. It's always like, how can I get to the next thing and the next accomplishment and the next goal? And it's this never-ending journey, which, by the way, Shabbat is special because the sages say Shabbat is a taste of the world to come. And they're not just saying it in like a cute way. It's literally a taste of heaven because on Shabbat, you cease from having to hustle to the next thing. It is a complete aspect of ceasing from doing. And you're tasting what it's like in the next world when you don't have that feeling of having to run to the next thing, but you feel you've arrived. You're there. All of the, you've reached the there that this lifetime never fully satiates. Sometimes we have tastes of it. It could be something as simple as a nap, a shower, going to a movie. If you want to get deeper, it could be like intimacy or a meditation or something where you don't feel like there's somewhere else to be. You feel like I've arrived. I'm there. I don't have to think about, I used to train jujitsu, something even like sports. You're there. There's nothing else outside of it. Shabbat is a higher dose of that. And then we believe the next world, if you've lived a life where you've completed your mission, because we do believe in reincarnation when you haven't, but when you've completed it, that's the feeling of arrival.
So I wonder what you think about this. So I once in a meditation had this very vivid visualization of life almost being this never-ending cycle from one reincarnation to the next until we learn all the lessons and we fulfill our purpose. Because I think we have a purpose in each lifetime, plus a purpose as a whole in, let's say, Earth, as an example. And then we move into another world, which has its own rules, and you get this new set of lessons and purposes, and you keep coming for like thousands and thousands of years until like, okay, you checked off all your stuff. Now you could go even to the next, and it never ends because there's so many. And to almost go into this whole timeline thing that we spoke about before, it's not, when we think about time and possibility and free will and God, the way I've come to understand it is that every single possibility exists. And so God already knows what's going to happen because it's all happened. And so the free will is which timeline is your soul going to connect to and take on the journey of. So what is something that really excites you when it comes to growing Soul X in the next couple of months?
So I love to bend the rules of like what's like, usually you think about synagogue and then like social club, bar, or whatever it is, like never the two shall meet. Or you know, traveling to you know, Ibiza and then like staying at my local, you know, for me, I'm planning Shabbats in the French Riviera, in the Hamptons. I also believe that spirituality and like an upscale aesthetic outer beauty can go together. Like doesn't have to be like in a shed somewhere that, you know, because we're doing spirituality, it can be body and soul can both be on expressed beautifully. So like the temple in Jerusalem was the most beautiful building, the synagogues throughout time. So what I'm excited about is like kind of where culture is at, to fuse that with Jewish spirituality, and they can go together and meet at this like middle point. And again, along the lines of the theme where, you know, your lifestyle or where people are at, meeting people where they're at, and still taking the truth of what you're trying to share, not diluting it, being realistic into where people are interested in, and bring it together. So I'm excited for that. I'm planning some really cool experiences this summer in places that are I love like sharing like an event or an idea, and everyone's like, what? Like, awesome. I want to go to that. I remember earlier in the year, sadly, right after October 7th, the terrorist attacks, I did it was like the women's event you went to. It was like a Rosh Chodesh with Michaela Ezra, which I should connect you with her. She's amazing. She lives in Australia, but she was visiting. She did with Gabby Bernstein, Michaela made these attractor cards, like super attractor spirit junkie cards with her. So she did the design and Gabby did the ideas. So Michaela was visiting, and we decided to do an event for the community. And I had to run back to my apartment to get stuff for the event. I come back at like 7:02 and the event started at 7. And there's like a line from the front door of our space all the way around on the street. And I'm like, this is like a club. Like Judaism's like become like you can make it exciting, you know? And Gabby actually came. She came and like sat in the back and like listened. And I'm like, I hope I did a good job explaining manifestation to the master. But that was a cool example of like this idea of, yeah.
I would have loved to have been there. And it's just so cool, like coming to your event with Joyce Franco, who's coming on the podcast. It's just so cool. Yeah. So all our listeners will be able to hear her too. It's just so cool to be able to listen to different types of people, different backgrounds, different modalities, and connect with different things that work for us, right? Because we're all different. We're not all the same. So not the same thing is going to work for everyone. And kind of just find the thing that works for us. And I totally wish that I was at that event that you had, but I didn't know you
Let's
back
get her
then.
back. Get her back.
Well, we got to get her back. So, what are the types of events that you have? So, for somebody who is listening is like, "Ooh, I'm interested."
Yeah, so it's usually for young professionals, they're like 20s and 30s. Sometimes people of other ages come, which is great. And I would say that I'll give an example. So, like next coming week, there's two events that I'm focusing on. One is something I call Soul Lounge, which is an idea. We choose a topic. This week's topic is hustle versus how much to trust and what your destiny is going to have. Like, how much do I have to make it happen? And how much is it just going to happen? I have to surrender to the plan. But instead of just teaching about it, which I will, I'll share some stories and ideas. I like to bring it out in experiential ways we were talking about. So we're going to have breakout discussion. We're going to have a guided meditation. We're going to have sound healing, a hand pan, and different cool things like that. We're going to have, and then it's going to morph into like a DJ after party where you can just meet the people that you've now shared a deep experience with. I imagine, I feel from my experience that, every time we do that, people are connecting in a way that isn't just like, oh, so what do you do? What do you do? Like, what's, where are you from? But they're able to go a little deeper with each other. So I feel like when we do these kind of more in-depth experiences, we learn more about Torah and Judaism and how we can better our lives. But B, the connection between everyone coming is also enhanced. And it's just, yeah, it's like a beautiful experience. We're doing that on Wednesday. And then Friday night will be a Shabbat dinner. But instead of the last Friday Shabbat dinner was like 250 people. It was the biggest I've ever done. It was a crazy experience. This one will be like 30, 35. So I kind of like sometimes it'll be more curated and sometimes it'll be just the whole community. So like Shabbat dinners, soul lounges, the Soul Sisters women's events, classes, art, different things. But I have like 3 or 4 core programs and then working on some retreats for the future. So
What I think is so special about your events is the integration aspect. I find that a lot of spiritual community and events lack integration, which is one of the most important parts of any of this, because you can learn as much as you want, but if you're not like integrating it on a soul level and understanding it and listening to it, two things might happen. One, you get burnt out, or B, you don't understand anything that's happening and you could get really confused and you could kind of lose your sense of support and groundedness. And so what I really loved about the event that you're having this upcoming week, is after you get all deep, kind of having that DJ and that little party for people to really talk in their own natural way in this deeper level about what just happened, and it's a way of integrating and sinking in. It's not just putting on the lotion, it's like rubbing it in there.
Right. No, totally. Actually, it's interesting you added the social element as part of the integration because I don't know if I always saw it that way, and I think you're right. But I'll also say in between everything that we learn about and discuss, and then the party, there's the meditation part. And what I love about the meditation part is no more another person talking at you. And like you might find it to resonate even. It can be deeply felt like, wow, I'm going to take that with me later. That's integrating it. The meditation allows time for the person to connect to it in their own personal way, as opposed to just, even though it is being guided, it's like there are silent moments where you can kind of like feel into this idea that resonated. Now there's that bridge. Now you're bridging it from the mind down into your heart and body, and it's becoming something that you more likely will take with you.
Which is the
Personally.
integration. Yeah, which is exactly the integration. So what's one piece of advice you give to somebody who's just waking up or just starting their journey into their relationship with God and spirituality?
I think one thing was what we were saying before is like stoking the flame. So every day, whether it's speaking to God or learning for us Torah or like I think just like any relationship is most healthy when you're kind of consistent with it. Like I could call my grandmother, let's say once a year, And that's still a nice thing. But just like in Judaism, I can go to synagogue Yom Kippur once a year. But we don't feel the intimate connection, it's because it hasn't been built. And I think, like anything in life, exercise, like the more you, and not just for big things, not just like, oh my God, I'm like, the cops are about to bust me in this drug heist, God help me. But even in little things, like, I can't find a parking space. I'm nervous. I'm about to go into an interview. Like, please give me the serenity, like kind of developing this connection to like a relationship, as I was saying before. In any way that is, if somebody finds it difficult to do all the prayers, difficult to study in Hebrew, whatever it is, I think it's like earnestly just connecting in your way and seeking out teachers you resonate with, like just like anything that you want to get better at and feel an affinity to. It's like, and you'd be surprised how many people, like when you reach out to them, I have people asking me questions all the time. I'm happy to answer. This is what I'm here for. So like it's seeking. Seeking is a very noble thing, and going for it when it's valuable.
And I really love that, because what you touched on about God, like really having that constant communication in order to feel the essence. I find that regardless of whether you're aware of it or not, you're constantly communicating with God. And you communicate to God, not just through prayer, but by your actions. I always say, you're never judged by your thoughts. You're never judged by your feelings. You're judged by how you react to those things and how you react to the outside world as well. And so if God's always listening to your reaction, right? Let's say the simple one is like you're calling in a partner, you're a soulmate, but then you keep having one night stands or hookups. God's not going to listen to you want that soulmate. God's going to hear the reaction of, oh, she or he still wants that one night, that quick, whatever it is. And so knowing that whether or not you're aware of it, God's listening to your reactions. If you're actually intentional about what you're doing, how much more powerful, how much quicker would you be able to collapse time to get your prayers answered? And so I think that's such a beautiful piece of advice that you gave, because it's so powerful.
Thank you. And I also resonate a lot with what you said. I think you don't get what you want, they say, you get who you are. And I saw a friend post on Instagram the other day, instead of praying for what you want, pray that God guides you to become a worthy like vessel or a worthy person for that thing that you want, or person, or whatever it is, and you be aligned with it. And then of course it'll flow once we become that which we're ready to connect with. Yeah.
And it's funny because I also believe that it's not that we aren't already worthy. We're born worthy without changing a single thing about who you are in this very moment. You're worthy of all the things you want. The difference is that you don't know that. And until you remember that you're absolutely worthy of it, you're still going to act in ways that isn't worthy with the thing that you're calling in. So, or praying for. So if you pray for, like what you just said, to have the worthiness and the deservingness and the sense of self that has these things, you can show up differently and therefore align and connect with those things.
So there's probably a lot there that you're saying. I'd have to think more. I do agree to an extent, but I also feel like you can be, you say you could be like a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time. Like on a soul level, you're right. Like you're good to go. You're perfect. But it's an entire lifetime of like working to move from a selfish child, right? They say when you're born, your hands are like fists because you're all about yourself. And when we die, our hands are open because you're now open. The goal of life is to work on your character traits, to become less selfish. It takes time. And you meet a woman before motherhood and after, like the amount of giving, it changes you. And I think that work does make you, it's not like you have to do something to merit a partner per se, or like change yourself completely. But I do think you have to go through certain things in your life and you have to work on yourself to a certain extent that allows you in this iteration of yourself. Like, again, at an essential level, you're good. But in the you, that's all the like aspects that make us who we are. It takes work to, and prayer and effort to become fitting to have a successful, whatever it is, the next thing that we want.
100%. And that's where the remembering comes in. There's like this idea where we're always learning more. And I really like to view it as we're remembering because our soul already knows. So it's really connecting with that. And so, right, like you said, we might not have the holiest sense of self that feels like we deserve and we're worthy. And through the journey of life, if we choose so intentionally, we can get on that journey of, oh, wait a second, I am worthy and deserving. And you pick up these different lessons along the way that help you remember that. And that's the work that takes you there. And just in what I've,
No, I like
what I practice.
I like that. I'm learning.
Remembering, but yes.
Remembering.
And so I know you wrote a book. You have a book out. Do you want to share what it's called for any listener that's like, ooh, I want to learn more about the Millennial Rabbi's work?
Okay. So very apropos to what we've been talking about, beneath the surface. And yeah, it's kind of like, just like you look at the waves of the ocean and you imagine, oh, that's all there is. But underneath, there's a whole world of fish and entire universe. I think everything in life is like that. When we look at other people, when we look within ourselves, there's so many layers. And my simple mission in life, I think, is just to help people look a little deeper beneath the surface. You can decide how deep you want to snorkel or scuba dive as your own personal life experience. But if I can just help somebody like reframe for a moment God, religion, themselves to a more beautiful, like inspiring way, that is job done. If somebody wants to become super religious, whatever it is, that's great. I love it. But that's what I'm trying to do with the book and with my events and everything that I do. So I have the book, I have a podcast that I've been very not consistent as you have in the last nearest past. So different things online of all kinds that, and in person.
And so where can somebody buy this book?
It's on Amazon. And also my website. I have a website, millennialrabbi.com. It's my nickname, Millennial Rabbi. And so it's on there, but it's also on Amazon. And I think Michael Phelps has a book called Beneath the Surface about like swimming. So you might have to like scroll down or add the name Rabbi after Beneath the Surface, then it'll pop up. But it's not the first thing when you go on Amazon. Don't get discouraged.
No, but it's so cool and such an accomplishment that you have a book out. I can't wait to order it and read it and learn more about your journey and what you're teaching. And if somebody wants to follow you on social media, like Instagram, what's your handle?
Yeah, so it is actually Millennial Rabbi, the nickname, and 2 L's, 2 N's. And that's the best way to follow along the journey.
Oh my gosh, amazing. Thank you for sharing all of this. It's such a good episode.
Hey, if you like this podcast episode, please download it, give us a nice review, and follow us on Instagram at JourneyWithVRD to get all the latest and the greatest updates. Till next week.